Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's great to have so many wonderful people here. My name is Mark. I'm the founder of 1880. If you've never been to 1880, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And for those of you who are members, welcome home. It's great to have you back. I just want to take a little bit of a kind of temperature of the room. How many of you are, let's say, familiar with Steve Davies? How many of you know who he is? I should have asked who doesn't know who he is.
Can you put your hand up?
Okay, so yeah. Wife is like, still learning. So for those of you who don't, so some of you don't know who he is. That's great. How many of you are clients? Just so I get a measure of Steve's, right?
Nobody's admitting it.
Nobody. Everybody's like, lost all my money. Okay, well, I'm a client. And then how many of you are friends of Steve? Would call yourself friends of Steve's, right?
Wow. 3. Thanks, guys.
Okay, love this crowd. Okay, so the third category are the ones that I would count as the luckiest. I've been a friend of Steve's for somewhat close to 20 years since I first came to Singapore, and we became clients shortly thereafter. We've done lots of stuff together. We cohabitated. We've started businesses together, and most importantly, Steve has I think we're probably his smallest client, and despite that, we get an amazing sort of very personal touch, and he has a genuine concern for our family's well-being and preservation of wealth and just how well we're doing in life. He's also invested in businesses that we've started and operated, and we've worked with the family. So I feel very, very, very fortunate to count Steve as one of my dear friends, and very fortunate to have him here tonight to share his experience of this year with us today. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Super, super happy.
I think I need to go and just open my eyes.
It all goes down here from here, my
this?
friend. This is that's where the kindness ends. Steve, in his inimitable way, gave me a whole script. As you might expect,
keep him on track.
He was like, "Please moderate the discussion with these questions." So we'll start off. I'm not going to ask you any of these questions.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting you to.
Yeah. So Steve, just put us all on the right page. What are we doing here? Why are we all here? What have you done?
Yeah. So I walked 954 kilometers across Spain. So that was what I did, and I got back 3 weeks ago. The background of this is that I first had the idea of doing this by watching a movie. Some of you may have seen this movie. We actually have the trailer of the movie, so if you just bear with me, we're going to play that now.
Hello.
I'm sorry to inform you that your son has been killed, sir.
Daniel? Something happened to Daniel?
He was walking the road to Santiago de Compostela, 800 kilometers on the coast of Spain.
You're not a pilgrim, are you? A trekker?
I'm here on family business.
Come on, a father-son trip. It'll be fun.
Most people don't have the luxury of just leaving it all behind.
Well, I'm not most people.
We're gonna walk the Camino de Santiago.
We?
Both of us.
People have walked the path for over 1,000 years.
I'm Jack from Ireland.
Tom, California.
I'm from Amsterdam.
Dutch, huh?
What are you looking to score?
I love this guy.
It wears off quick, I promise.
The way is a very personal journey, Mr. Avery.
You said you were on family business.
I am.
That box with the ashes.
My son.
Just because I'm losing. What was your son like?
Daniel was a lot like you. Smart, confident, stubborn. Pissed me off a lot.
Doesn't mean I'll stop.
There's no mystery why I'm doing this trek. Would make my doctor and my wife a bit happier.
Just because I'm losing.
So what is it? On pilgrimage to change your life?
Something like that.
Oh, no!
I just got
But you can do this on a bike? Why the hell are we walking?
every river that I try.
don't choose a life, Dad. You live one.
So I watched that movie, and I've watched it every year ever since. Great movie. Martin Sheen, fantastic actor. And it's directed by Emilio Estevez, his son. So great. So I watched this movie, and then I thought, oh, the Camino de Santiago, that sounds really interesting. So I had, at university a very long time ago, done one of my degree subjects was on the Crusades, and we covered the Conquista, the Spanish Crusade, which meant that under various medieval kings and queens, the Christianization of Spain took place. Anyway, the Camino itself dates back probably at least to around about the 7th century, and it's supposed to commemorate the path that various people have taken on pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, where the reliquary of the Apostle St. James lies in state in the crypt of the cathedral at Santiago. And as was referred to on that, people have been doing this for 1,000 years. It's obviously primarily a Catholic pilgrimage, but increasingly lots of other people do that too. I'm not religious. I don't have a practicing religion, but when you walk along this fantastic walk, it's impossible to ignore the spiritual underpinnings of it. Met some fantastic people along the way. I did it by myself, but I was originally planning on doing this with a very, very dear friend of mine. So John and I were going to do this in 2018, but he became ill, and he died in 2021 from motor neurone disease. So I walked this in his honor. I did some things along the way in commemoration of him and other people who are very dear to me. And we also raised £25,000 for 2 motor neurone disease charities, one of which is right here. Thank you. One of which is here in Singapore, and one of which is back in the UK. So that was the reason. I need a beer.
Yeah. Take a sip. I forget your questions. I have so many sort of thoughts that perk up, and I'll come back to some of the essentials in here. But you know, for those of you who know, or maybe for those of you who don't, earlier this year we started a series on men's mental health, specifically because of growing kind of problem, if you like, in middle-aged men experiencing lots and lots of questions and anxiety, and that can turn into really physical and mental problems. So we started a series, and we untapped something that we didn't expect. It really hit a nerve, and we've had some highly emotional evenings where initially we allowed women, and then we decided not to allow the women to attend, and it made the ease of conversation just a little bit easy, anyway, more simple. So the thing that is primarily on our mind is all the pressure that we put on ourselves, and the fact that we measure our success and our value by accomplishments, and it's always on a scorecard of some sort. It's a balance sheet of, I have achieved this, I have accrued that, I have raised this, and I've invested in that and built that, and not enough on who we are as people. And so I think that we're trying to reframe this now in terms of living life better, not working better. And so the really deep question, like the first question I want to ask you, Steve, is what, well, let me ask it this way. Do you like yourself better now?
I think I need to ask my wife. Do you like me better?
It was starting at a low pace. Yeah, no, don't be British. Answer the question.
British, answer the question. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move on. When you set out, did you have objectives for yourself?
I did. I had some things that I wanted to do. There were certain places along the way. Some of the photographs.
Again, the British.
Yeah.
I mean, did you set objectives for your brain, for your soul? Were there things that you sort of said, hey, I really want to think about this on this journey. I really want to overcome this. I really want to contemplate this. Was any of that part of the journey? You shouldn't have asked me to moderate.
No,
This is why you gave me the script, right?
It's not on the list. Okay, so I think that in many respects, what I was looking for was the opportunity to talk to lots of different people and find how they were responding to different things. In order for me to be able to try and put some of my own experiences and so forth into perspective, because it's by talking with other people that you get that. So those conversations turned out to be both surprising and very, very valuable.
We chatted a little bit. I want you to tell me all about each of those, though.
Okay. But the one thing when you're doing this particular pilgrimage is the fact that everybody's walking in the same direction to the same place, right? You might be doing it for different reasons, but everybody's going to Santiago de Compostela, the cathedral, and then some of us carry on down to the Atlantic to see the sea. But as a result, what that means is you get into very deep and thought-provoking conversations incredibly quickly. So, British, right? So British people, as my wife will be able to attest, probably take about a decade to warm up. You can't do that when you're doing a walk like this because it happens in nanoseconds. So within the space of an hour, you are starting to talk to people. The first question that everybody asks is, what are you doing here? And then you sort of say, you can't really say I'm just here because I felt like having a really, really long walk, because you're not. And that would be disrespectful to a lot of the other reasons why other people are doing that. So you talk about things, you talk about your friends, you talk about your family, you talk about people you miss, you talk about what you have achieved and what you want to achieve in your life. And so those were probably the most valuable moments, and you got those every single day. I mean, 6 weeks just of incredible discussions and conversations with wonderful, very warm, interesting people.
You have a few highlights to give us?
Yeah, so I mean, first day, so you're going up from Saint-Jean, so that's on the French border, and it basically goes up the mountain, up to the top, and then down the other side into Spain. So my friend Montida over there, she did it a year ago, and she liked it so much she had to do the other half in France as well, just to make sure that she'd done it twice effectively. But she'll know what I'm talking about. You go up this steep mountain, and you start talking to people on the way up, and as you gasp with exertion. So there's this lovely lady called Daniela who's a cancer survivor. So Hunchung will know this, but she's been in remission for a number of years, and she was carrying this locket around her neck. So I said, "Oh, what's that locket?" And she said, "Oh, that's my mother." So I said, "Oh, are you doing the Martin Sheen thing from the way, sprinkling a little bit of the ashes?" And she said, "No, my mother would never forgive me for leaving her alone in the middle of nowhere." So we got talking, and she's a lovely lady, and I kept on bumping into her, and we talked about life in Canada. There is a life in Canada, apparently, Mark.
Thanks.
Mark's Canadian, for those of you who may not know. And we just talked about what it was she was doing it for and what it meant, and she was taking her own time and just having fun talking about it, and being part of the experience.
You mentioned a Dutch couple. You have you actually sent me these notes, so I'm going to look at them.
Makes a nice change.
Well, so I guess I don't know what to ask you right now because you won't open up to me. ZZ Top.
Yes.
What's that about?
ZZ Top, so that wasn't Dutch, they were Australians. So, yeah. So these are people that I met probably on day 2. As an Australian group. We were in this little town on our 3rd day, and I arrived in the Casa Rural, walked through the door, and there's this bunch of Australians plus a couple of others, and we were being welcomed by the lady who owned the house. And she said, oh, by the way, the fridge is over there. All you need to do is just put €1 in the box every time you take a beer or anything else. So I said, €1 for a beer. How many have you got? And so I said to the Australians, you've got to be quick because there's not going to be much left. So we got on very well. We went out for dinner. We found this little cafe in the middle of nowhere owned by this guy who looked like Dusty from ZZ Top, and it turned out it was his birthday, so we sang him happy birthday. My wife knows that I like singing, so sang him happy birthday, and that meant we got free drinks all evening. Hey. So there you go. So that was ZZ Top, who said as soon as he knew that we were pilgrims, he sort of said, bars open, ship it in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the structure. How does somebody go about doing this when most of us have day jobs and families and lives and commitments?
Yeah.
How hard is it to organize this? And not all of us can afford to take as much time off as you've taken.
Yeah.
How would you contextualize that for us?
So I'm lucky. I own my own business, and it's our 20th anniversary this year. Polka is right over there, my business partner. So 10 years ago, I was running my business. It was doing all right, but it was okay. And Polka joined me 10 years ago, and in the last 10 years has helped me turn that into a properly functioning business that actually makes a profit.
And we've noticed our returns have gone up a lot.
Yeah. But what that has also meant is that I missed that.
We all are going to fund your next trip.
So then we built a really good team. The team's all here, and because we've got a good team, I was able to take this time off and do something different. Polka's only condition was that I wasn't going to have an epiphany and decide I was going to retire immediately on return. So that's the key thing, is that make sure that you've got your succession plan in place. Maybe you could make sure you've got a good team. Have you got that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm on sabbatical. This is my sabbatical.
Well, that's true. Huh? Yeah, exactly right. Yes. So and that was what made it all possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd originally planned to do this in 2018, so we've had 5 years to prepare for this.
Yeah.
And fortunately, although I took my laptop with me,
You did.
I did. And I did look at it every day. The good thing about it was that I didn't have to respond to anything. So I could have left it at home.
And there were probably some considerations on the family side, or did you just go?
Sooner the better.
Yeah. I think those are the exact words, yeah. Yes, Yvonne, Nikki and Ewan, very, very supportive. I even dragged Ewan along for the last 100 kilometers, which he might want to tell you about or not, as the case may be. But yeah, so I did it with my son for a little bit of it, which was terrific.
100 is not a little bit of it. It seems like quite a lot.
I-
How was it?
I struggled along. So I was walking the last 100 kilometers after I finished my exams and found myself unfit, getting outwalked by my uncle, who is 2 years older than my father, so really old. But there was me hobbling around the back because I hadn't left my desk for the last 2 months or so. And it was a good 100 kilometers. Would I do it again? Maybe bike that time. But yeah, no, it was very emotional. I think at the end, when you get to the end, I hadn't done the whole thing.
Yeah.
But when you get to the final bit, I think I preferred finish there, which is one of the endings you can do. And there was a point where we were sharing a beer at the end, and it was sort of just like, where else would you rather be sharing a beer with your dad and your uncle, who's there as well? And I just thought it was probably one of the best days I had in the longest time. So thank you for dragging me out as well.
Wow, he learnt his line.
Is there a reason you didn't invite your daughter?
She couldn't make it. She's been on a holiday
Good
about.
job.
I don't have the luxury of leaving my company for this.
Yeah.
So
Plus the fact you've been on holiday for about
half the year.
26 weeks this year, as far as I can recall.
Revenge travel. That's COVID, what can I say?
Yeah.
Are you happy your dad did this?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he had a good time, so it's nice to see. We saw updates every day, so we were kind of following along with him.
And was there ever a moment where you thought, oh, this is a stupid idea, let's go home?
I can honestly say no.
Okay,
never.
cool. Yeah.
Every single day. Because I had expected that there would be sort of down days, but I can honestly say never. Not
Hardest
for one
hardest
moment.
part of the thing, like weather, hunger, cold, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is again just going to be really boring, but no, it was absolutely fantastic. We had one day, the first day, going over the top of the Pyrenees, and it was snowing, hailing, raining, wind, and I thought, this is like Edinburgh in the summer, where I was at university for 4 years. So if this is the worst that can happen, fine, I'm conditioned. It's in my genes, pal.
Did when you decided to take some time off of work, did you think of doing anything else, or was it always Camino?
I can honestly say that was something that I'd been thinking about and wanting to do for 5 years. And it struck me that this was something that just was both meaningful for me. It was going to be meaningful for John if he'd been able to come. We would have had a great time together. It would have been different, but it would have been a great time together. I felt, I could have gone, I don't know, fishing. But just this sense of you walking along this 1,000-year path of the history, the old churches that you see, the Crusader castles, the nun that dragged me into a little chapel and proceeded, even though I told her I wasn't Catholic.
Where's this story going?
Well, no, it's just the stuff. You want stuff, right?
I do.
And
you said priest, I'd be really worried.
Yeah. So, she proceeded to say there's blessing over me whilst I was sitting there, and Ave Maria was playing in the background, and it was an incredibly moving moment. But this whole trek was all about moments like that.
Okay. Contextualize for the rest of us. How important is this as one of the things that you've done in your life?
What, after getting married and having my 2 children?
Starting your business,
starting my
graduating,
business. Yeah,
exiting
top
your
5.
other business.
Top 5.
Top 5. 1, 2, 3.
It's in the top 5. It could be number 4.
Okay, and as a top 5 event in your life.
We're still friends, right?
No,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah.
I want to know if you, like, if part of the whole purpose of coming here tonight is to tell everybody, go do this, whatever it is, go do more of this and less of that, whatever that might be.
I think the one lesson that I've learned, and I'm sure everybody else has done over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly post-COVID, is find time for yourself. And if whether or not you do something like this or something else, find something meaningful and take the time. And it's incredibly valuable if you can find other people who are doing the same thing. And the coincidence of doing the Camino de Santiago or any of these other many similar type of spiritually driven routes is that you'll find soulmates for a period of time. Couple of weeks, couple of days, an hour. And it's a big thing.
So what I love about that is this is a sort of activity where you can opt to be on your own and in your own head if that's where you want to be,
Yeah.
and enjoy nature, or you can like literally turn to the person who's behind you, in front of you, and have a chat.
You can.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm starting my own question, Q&A, but was there like a little bit of an arc of when you first started and your expectations for what was going to happen, and then kind of how it progressed, and at the end, did you find, a difference in perspective? Was it what you expected? What did you think was that sort of how you think of it at the beginning, and then how you appreciated it at the end? So, a little bit of that.
Yeah, I guess I was expecting it to be more physical and less spiritual, and it was completely the opposite. So 5 years of preparation meant that I was pretty fit when I went, and I didn't have any physical issues at all. I mean, I have to admit, it was a bit painful going down some of the steep hills, but then I recovered very quickly, and the following day I was ready to go again. The spiritual aspect of it was probably more of a challenge, and that led me in unexpected directions. So when that nun pulled me off into the chapel and insisted on saying this blessing over me whilst this music was playing in the background, it was very, very overwhelming. And I hadn't expected that at all.
Was it in English?
No, it was in Latin.
That's what I thought.
So, there you go.
How's
But
your
you
Latin?
understand the sense, and this nun was, she presented me with this little Mother Teresa medallion, which I carried with me for the remainder of my 4 weeks thereafter. And when I went for a swim in the Atlantic on arrival at Cap Finisterre, that was around my neck. What was around my neck? Yeah. It was good.
So what does that mean to you now? Post.
What does it mean to me now?
Yeah.
Do more of that. So next year, guys, another 6 weeks off.
1880 sponsor coming to the
Well, exactly, yeah. But I mean, the interesting thing is there were so many different people who do it in different ways. There are people who walk, cycle, go on e-bikes. Probably the most powerful one was as I arrived on the outskirts of Santiago, I finally met this group who I'd heard about. There was this lady in a wheelchair. As it turned out, she had motor neurone disease. She was in a wheelchair, but she had obviously wanted to do this. So her husband was in front, pulling her along. There were two friends who were pushing her from behind, and obviously they were doing selected bits of the Camino itself, but there you go. I mean, I was doing it in the honour of my friend John, who had motor neurone disease and didn't get the chance to do this, but there was somebody with motor neurone disease in a wheelchair being dragged up a hill by friends and family. So I wasn't being dragged up a hill by friends and family, but I was certainly being pushed by friends and family to the same destination. Amazing.
What else?
Completely different question. Which was your favourite cathedral along the way?
Ooh. So there are.
Loves that question.
So I went to whatever it was, 4 cathedrals. So first one was at Logrono. Sorry, Pamplona. Second one was at Burgos. Then there's Logrono, and then there's Leon. So the most spectacular is probably Burgos, where if you're a fan of Charlton Heston, the old movie El Cid, so he's not Charlton Heston, but El Cid is buried in that cathedral next to his wife, played by Sophia Loren in the movie. So it is amazing. The one thing I've got to say for the Catholic Church, and as I say, I'm not a Catholic, but cathedrals, fantastic. I mean, these amazing spaces, which are all built to the glory of God. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So Burgos has the sort of physical presence, is very Gothic, absolutely incredible. And then Leon is kind of similar, but has the most amazing stained glass, which you look up and see these rose windows, and they are absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing. And then you see the way the light comes in.
All that Romanesque art.
Indeed, yeah, very much so. And then I think I was very fortunate to arrive in Santiago de Compostela on Pentecost Sunday, and on high days and holy days at Santiago Cathedral, they swing this incense burner called the Botafumeiro, which I don't know if you saw that when you were there, Mon. Yes. You did. So this 8,500 kilo incense burner is swung the length of the nave by 8 guys who are just pulling it on this massive pulley, and it is absolutely incredible. Yeah, so that was a very special moment as well. I was very lucky to see that because they don't do it every day.
Do you have to be incredibly wealthy to be able to do this?
No.
Okay, that was the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
We talked the other day about how much is enough, and I don't know if you have a fixed number or concrete answer to that, but at what point should people look at doing this and maybe say to themselves, enough is enough?
How much is enough to do this, or how much is enough life-wise?
Your job is private wealth management, right?
It is, yeah.
And you have, over the last 20 years, helped people accumulate and preserve capital.
Yes.
And do we just keep doing that and keep working and keep striving to put more pennies in the piggy bank? Or is there a point at which you would say, you know what, you have enough, why don't you go enjoy life?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that as so I've been doing this for 20 years now. My previous career was in investment banking. So 20 years ago, I decided to stop looking after my own money and some of that of other people's as well. The point about how much is enough, so you can look at it a number of different ways. I remember my mum and dad coming to visit us in Singapore, probably, so you're 23 now, so this would have been when you was about 5, so 18 years ago. And mum and dad took a taxi ride here in Singapore, and the taxi came and picked them up and sort of said, so what does your son do? So Dad said, well, he's got his own business and so forth, and so the taxi driver, they just had a bit of a chat, and then taxi driver said to him, how many children and grandchildren do you have? So Dad said, well, I've got 4 children and I've got 12 grandchildren. Taxi driver said, you're a very wealthy man. And Dad said, typically British, well, you know, I think we've got enough, you know, etc. So the taxi driver said, no, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about family. So there's a taxi driver defining wealth as family. He has enough. He thinks my dad's got enough because he has family. I thought, and that's has always resonated with me, is that, you know, you define wealth in different ways. So yeah, we do our best to make sure that our clients' investments and savings are looked after properly, and we generate the returns that they're looking for. But you're quite right. One of my clients told me that he was sitting down running through his portfolio with his 23-year-old son, and the dad lives in Singapore, the family's back in the UK, so they are a split family. He's working very, very hard to provide for the future, and his son said to him, well, Dad, you and Mum have got a lot of money. How much is enough? And the dad then said to me afterwards, he sort of said, I had to think about it. I think we've got enough, and now's the time that I need to start spending this on living, which I think is a terrific way of looking at it. So you can spend your friend at LBS, who defined what?
20 million was his number.
20 million was his number, and then you saw him a
I
couple
saw
of
him
weeks ago.
25 years later, and he said the number's 40 now.
Yeah. So this guy defines it all in dollars and cents.
Yeah.
But lots of other people quite rightly defined it in other ways, and I think that's important. So spend time to be able to do things like this.
I realize that your commissions go down if you tell people to take money out of their nest egg and go and spend it.
We don't get commission. People pay us a fee for fantastic advice, Mark.
Gene would know that.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool. Any curiosities, Marianne?
I've done the Camino, but the much shorter one because I have not had your choices in life. Tell them about the pilgrim hostels.
Well, hands up, I didn't stay in a single pilgrim hostel.
Oh, you missed out.
No, well, maybe I did, but as you all know, having done the Camino, everybody has their own Camino.
Yes.
So I went to boarding school in the UK as a kid. I vowed I was never, ever, ever going to stay in a dormitory ever again, and I wasn't going to start now. When John and I were planning this trip, I said to John, look, there are 2 ways that we can do this. We can do the pilgrim hostel route, we can carry everything on our backs, and we just turn up and see where we stay. And he said, yep, and the other? We can pre-book it, we can get our big bags carried by a taxi every day, so all we have to do is walk and arrive, and we know we're there. So John said, yep, and what's the question? So we decided to do the latter. And in all honesty, I'm 60 years old, so carrying an extra 10 or 15 kilos on my back going up and down mountains, I just didn't really want to do that, and I wanted to focus on spending time on just enjoying the experience.
Did it change the way you view work?
Yes and no. I was very appreciative and felt enormously privileged that I've, over the last 20 years, been able to build a business that I can take this time off. Number 2, it's meant that I can also probably spend a bit more time thinking about other things that I can do in work on a more broad basis. So that's given me a bit more time and space, I think, to have a think about where we go from here. I think the good thing is that we've now got a platform, a team, which allows us to do that. So the next 10 years of our development, I think, are going to be really exciting, and it therefore means that we're now in a position where we can start taking those sort of leaps to the next stage of development, as well as making sure that we spend time on doing what we have been doing well.
So just to follow that on, will you change anything in the way you work, your allocation of time, priorities? Will anything for you be different?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've adapted a bit since COVID. We still do one day a week working from home, but if you need to be in the office and do things, you come into the office. So I think that we, along with a lot of other businesses, have become more flexible, and I like to think, hopefully the team will agree, that we provide more space for people to do things and work in their own way and in their own time, subject to the demands of the overall business.
I mean, maybe some of you have done things with Steve, worked with him on a project, or gone somewhere. Like, the way I know you is you're incredibly thorough. Nothing gets left undone or unthought or to chance. And I would not want you to change any of that, given that you hold our family's nest egg.
Shit, so that means I can't retire tomorrow then.
Yeah, well, you can ask her when you can retire. But I think maybe for many people the answer might be different, that they might choose to sort of say, well, I've had my foot on the pedal for 20 years, and I have a heart condition, I'm unhealthy, I have no relationship with my loved ones, I need to change everything. That might be the situation for the vast majority of people, and you're perfect, so we don't need to do that. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, many of us would go on a journey like this and come back and go, oh, I did it all wrong. I've lived my life that way, and now I'm going to choose to live to a different priority, or a different spiritual purpose.
Yeah, I think that whenever you take a journey like this, whether or not it's something like this or something a bit different, it's always a good opportunity for reflection, both in terms of family and self and all your interests. But as I say, I mean, being able to sort of have conversations with other people who are going through the same whole process is a real privilege. And I think, if I was going to sum up my journey, it was just a question of privilege of being strong enough, healthy enough to be able to do this, privilege to have the time, privilege to have a supportive family who are sort of cheering me on, privilege to have a great bunch of people that I work with every day and enjoy working with every day, who were able to indulge me to go off and do this.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I would like to think that they have now begun to realize that we can do things differently. They can take on more responsibility themselves. That frees us up to think about the other things that we can do to make sure that our clients are being looked after as well as they possibly can be.
Awesome. Is anybody trying to design their own sabbatical time out? Anybody?
Put your hand down.
The whole office is like, yeah, we're out. Here are the keys. See you later.
1880 is closed for the year.
Yeah. No, Javelin, not us. Yeah.
So let's hear from Mon. So Montida, my very good friend. So she did the Camino de Santiago last year, same route that I did. And then she decided to turn around.
We were supposed to do together.
We were.
In a section.
Yes.
And then you bailed out on me.
For good reasons.
Yes.
And then you decided to do the section from Le Puy, which is in the middle of France, down to Saint-Jean. So she did it effectively twice.
So it was wonderful. Wonderful. And for those who would like to experience that, who can't afford to take the time off, I would highly recommend. A lot of people would do in sections. Yeah. You would just do 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and then the next year you continue on where you left off. And it's a very, there's a sort of a goal post. So that was May, and then I came back in June. So walking months in Spain is May and September. So my husband was busy working, happily working. So I said to him, well, you're happy, our kids are gone, can I go again? So I did, in September. I walked across France. So, it's all called the Camino Bel.
How many days were you walking, and did you take rest days?
I did. So I walked for 39 days, and then I had an extra 4 days rest in various different places, usually in brilliant, wonderful cathedral cities where I got the chance to wander around these medieval streets, visit the cathedrals. I watched the coronation of King Charles in a Scottish pub in Burgos. So there you go. That was an experience. And just spending those times and just being able to take a bit more time to look around. So there are some people who judge their success of the Camino with the number of kilometres that they've walked in a day. And I bumped into pilgrims who sort of said, "Yeah, I managed to reach 50 kilometres today." And I was just thinking, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, then good for you. But that's not what I want to do. I want to spend a bit of time. The way that the Camino, the French way, the Camino Frances works, is that the guidebooks always say, and I think there's an element of truth in that, is that it's divided into 3 sections. The first section is all about your body as you accustom yourself to walking these distances every day. The second section is all about the spirit, and that corresponds with this section in the middle called the Meseta, which is a sort of high flat plain that goes on for about 200 kilometers. And a lot of people find that really, really difficult because it's flat, straight, fields either side, but it's really, really open. And a lot of pilgrims choose to skip that bit. I found it the best because coming from Singapore, you're going across these wide open plains, and the skies are just incredible. Going through in spring, the bird life is going completely crazy. I didn't listen to earpods once in my entire trip because there was just so much going on in the natural world, and it just made you appreciate everything about being able to get out into countryside, little villages, wandering through where really the only reason for that village to be there is farming and the Camino. And so they're very welcoming, and it was just exceptional. Really good.
I'm not supposed to ask questions because it feels staged, but I had asked you the same thing. Are you going to have music on or something? Because these are very long walks and you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
Just occurred to me, how did your thinking through the day? Because you're just on your own for 45 days, even joined for a short period of time.
Yeah.
What were you thinking through the days? As in,
Polka's my business partner. She asked me that same question every day from the entire 10 years. What were you thinking? So.
I don't know about you. I was thinking, where is the next bar? I need my beer. I need cold water.
Yeah, so, the day sort of unfolds. It's really simple. You sort of get up at 7. You're on the trail by 8. As Montita says, you're looking for your first cafe con leche and your first ham and cheese sandwich, sort of around about 10 kilometers in. And you sort of start thinking about things, and then you bump into somebody like Marty from New Zealand. Oh, hi Marty. Oh, and you just chat about stuff. So it's just really nice just being able to take the day as it comes and not really pre-planning up anything other than I know got to be at this place by the end of the day, and that's it, and that's quite wonderful.
Did you bring earphones? Were you
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh no, I think
To drown out the sound of your father going on.
So funnily enough, the most common argument was between my dad and his brother, because they both know a lot of things, but very different things. So David, his brother, could talk about the different types of rock and then he can tell you what good investment you should make next year. So they would argue about very different things. And I was telling my dad, it was one of the nicest parts was that living in Singapore, you don't get to talk to my dad's side of the family, which live in the UK. So walking with my uncle, after the first hour, we had gotten past the, oh, what are you doing now? Where are you at uni or whatever? And then we'd start to talking about, I don't know, the first question he asked me after we got past like the bullshit essentially, he was like, do you generally think that you have a happy disposition on life? And I was like, okay. And that was essentially what followed for the rest of the week. And I think it was a nice opportunity to get to know, you know, my family that I don't really see that much in a much more like meaningful way. So to answer your question, no, I didn't listen to music as much as I'd have liked to. But no, I thought it was very impactful in that kind of way.
But like that sounds absolutely amazing. Like what an opportunity! I would love to have that with both my kids to do that kind of walk or just have that time with them outside of a work and life environment. I think it's fantastic. Jeff?
Yeah. So that ties into a question that I've been thinking about is, you know, the movie The Way is about looking back, reflecting on a son's life and doing this for his son in the past. Your son's here talking about having this conversation with his uncle about the future.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the whole of the conversations you had with people, how many of them were looking back and reflecting on life, and how many of them were thinking about the future of their life? You know, where is the psychological sentiment of the people you talked about or talked with?
Good question. So the key quote from that movie is, "Dad, you don't choose a life, you live one." And needless to say, before I left for this Camino, I watched The Way again, and I've watched it since I got back. It's been interesting, sort of, you know, thinking about putting all of that into perspective. What does that mean from, you know, talking with family and friends and so forth? I think it's fair to say I'm still kind of working my way through that process. But yeah, it was great to do the big chunk of the way, the traditional route on my own, and meeting lots of different people and being very open to, you know, having discussions with different people. I think the thing that I learned was slow down a bit, take a bit more time, because I started off by saying, okay, I've got 25 kilometers to do today, I'm going to do it in 4.5 hours, bang. And then I sort of realized that, you know, if you just take a little bit more time, you might notice, oh, that's a really interesting butterfly over there. You get your butterfly app out on your phone. You go, oh, okay, so that's a, you know, Red Admiral or what? I haven't seen one of those before. And then you just sort of spend a little bit more time just.
Did you just make that up, or did you really do that?
I did. Do you want to see my app?
No.
And then you sort of, you know, go past the field and you think, is that oats or barley, or, you know, these are the things you think about, you know, just sort of think, oh, and that's an interesting tree over there, my goodness, those are almonds and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just, you know, very bizarre, quite random, but really, really good fun.
Steve, do you ever walk at night?
No.
No?
No.
So you never stargazing, get that app out?
Oh, no, I didn't do that.
Yeah. Cool.
Now I've got to go and do it again.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if, looking back and knowing what you do now, would you do anything differently?
Over the whole life?
Open to your interpretation.
So on the way, no, I think it was
exactly what you
damn cool.
Okay.
Ooh.
Wouldn't change your hat?
Would I change my hat?
Yeah.
Tristan, he always comes out with the deep and meaningful things, does Tristan? My hat.
Why would you change that?
Why would you change that? I'd like to say that, and Yvonne had a comment on this a while ago, was I was continually being commented on as being the best dressed pilgrim on the Camino. And I mentioned this to Yvonne, and she said,
And you didn't walk at night?
And I mentioned this to Yvonne, and she said, "Okay, so if you're the best dressed,
yeah."
So there you go. Mike, you had a question.
I have a question for Ewan. So,
Ewan, question for you.
Yeah.
What did you learn about your father on the trip?
Ooh, punchy.
And second question.
It's got to be good.
Do you have a newfound respect for your father?
Ooh, wow.
Gosh.
Mike.
Okay, so when you asked me to come along to support him, I didn't think I'd be answering questions like this. But I think to talk about what you were saying, Mark, earlier about the sort of like men's mental health kind of thing. I think growing up, my dad has always been sort of the epitome, at least for me, I think Nikki can attest as well, of like just general stoicism.
You're kidding.
So, in the sense that, you know, if something happened to either of us, he would always be there to sort of be like, you know, it's not that big of a deal, or you know, something like that. I remember when my sister broke my arm. And then, you know, my dad was walking down, and you know, I was crying and everything. I was like, you know, and he comes over and he's like, "Oh, you look like you've broken your arm." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, Dad." You know, all these like years of experience, and this is what you have to tell me. But you know, he was never worried, never really like, you know, he would not be sort of like, you know, making us as his children like, you know, ever worried about anything. So when I went on this walk with him, I kind of didn't expect the sort of level of emotion that he did display, but it wasn't in a sort of like in the way that I had grown used to growing up. It was sort of, he was much more, and I think definitely on the final week at which I walked with him, he was much more like open, eager to talk about like, you know, maybe things that we, you know, as guys probably wouldn't have talked about so easily. And there was another thing where I think the coolest part of his walk for me was when I'd been, you know, having a nap, and then he texted me and he was like, "Oh, I have some of my Camino friends down by the bar, and I want you to meet them." So I was thinking that would be, you know, 4 or 5 people, knowing my dad. And I come down, and there's literally 40 people there, and they're all so like eager to talk to each other. And you know, I come around, they're like, "Oh, Singapore Steve's son, we heard so much about you." And you know, and it was, I think for me it was the fact that everyone was so like genuinely interested in whatever they had to talk about and everything. So long-winded answer, but you know, I think my dad has sort of managed to thaw out his sort of softer side, I would say, from the walk.
Can be summed up by, on about day 3 of walking with Ewan, Ewan looked at me and he said, "Who are you and what have you done with my dad?"
That's awesome. Great question.
Yeah.
There was another half of your question.
I'm not going to push it. I think we got it.
Yeah, I think we got it. Super nice. Before we wrap up, can we do a little maybe commercial for motor neuron disease?
Yes, we should. Yeah.
I attended this year the Dodi charity dinner in Hong Kong.
Dodi where?
Yeah, and they do an incredible job of documenting the process that he went through and his family went through. It was very emotional to see how difficult it is to live with motor neuron disease for the individual, of course, and for the immediate family members.
There are 2 charities on that, the NNI Fund that Angela has just mentioned, and the Ewan MacDonald Centre at Edinburgh University, where I went to school a long time ago. But they've been doing some fantastic original research into motor neurone disease, which so far is looking quite promising. So if you felt like it, I know that many of you have very kindly donated already. Please do. It's going to mean progress on this horrible disease. My friend John, back at the end of 2018, we were originally planning to go and do this walk, in September of 2018, but John got pneumonia and was quite unwell. I went down for a walk with him in December of that year because we had postponed to March of 2020. And he and I went for a little walk along the cliff tops in Cornwall. And John was really, really struggling. And I got back to Singapore and I said to a couple of other very good friends of his, and I said, are you sure it's just pneumonia? Because it seems something else. And as it turned out, that something else was motor neuron disease. And John, from the moment of diagnosis to his death, it was 12 months. I think that John was fortunate in the fact that he did not linger, because you can only see there's a Dodie Weir lasted in actually reasonable health for quite a long time. There have been a number of other former rugby players who all seem to be predisposed to this, but it is a horrendous disease, and there is no cure. So, as Angela said, that takes a toll not only on the patient, but it also takes a toll on their families as well. So the NNI Fund provides support for those families too. Great cause. If you felt like it, please give something. There's a QR code on the back, makes it easy.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so Steve, on a little cheery note.
Yes.
Are you going to do it again?
Yes.
When?
Montita and I have been talking some while ago about different Caminos. There's another couple which are absolutely wonderful, and they're a bit shorter. So
Yvonne, will you go?
My knees are not great.
Okay, and Nikki, will you go?
That's my show.
Yeah. Did you say your friends are shorter? Is that what you said?
What's that?
You said the last thing you said was shorter. They're shorter.
What do you mean? The roots are shorter.
Oh, the root. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't always have to be about you, Mark.
Okay, we're done. Steve, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. And thank you.